This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's pod. This is the week in review of January 22nd, 2021. We've got a bit of an interesting show today. We're going to do a little bit of mental health sanity check. I know there's a lot of stuff going out there right now, a lot of anger and frustration, et cetera, et cetera. And with my third cancellation of a Disney trip, this is kind of maybe a little therapy session for me a little bit, but I'm not unique in any of this stuff. We're all feeling it in one way or the other, right?
And I think for that, we will forgive you for saying that it was 2021 when it's 2022.
Did I do that? Oh, my goodness. Yes. January 22nd, 2022. Was this our third show of the year, and I messed it up already. Any case, we're gonna talk about that. But as maybe a piece of foreshadowing, one thing that I saw come across Discord this week was a lot of people getting upset of cast members moving strollers from parking area to parking area. I know last time I went was like I did not bring a stroller, or I know I did bring a stroller with us, but I think our next trip we might not.
Yeah, that was your plan, was this trip to not bring one, and that was you were worried about that or how that would go and that sort of thing. Yep.
But there was a story out there that one person was very, very upset with the cast members. I don't know if there was cursing or yelling or
there was, and she was videotaping the whole thing while she was doing it, so obviously she
lovely.
was
I did not look at the video.
Yeah.
But my question to you, Phil, is when you did have strollers in the park, did you care when cast members touched them and moved them around?
I didn't necessarily care because I knew that was part of the deal, right? Like even within a stroller parking section, they would move them around to make it more efficient so new people could park. We had actually not an issue, but we didn't get back to our stroller. And one time when we were out at Disneyland and they had to move it for Fantasmic because that takes place on the Rivers of America there. And so we just had to figure out where it was. So it wasn't like we knew it was like our fault that we hadn't gotten to it yet, but we're like, where is our stroller? So no, I kind of get that that's something going on. It can be a little bit annoying if you come out of an attraction, you're like, wait, where is it? Like you can kind of freak out for a minute, but that's kind of the deal. You know, they have certain areas where you can have it and they're moving them around to make it more efficient because otherwise there'd be like strollers all over the place. So I don't know. I think you just kind of have to put up with it. And like I said, I think this woman was definitely trying to get attention given the fact she had her phone like in this cast member's hand, and props to the cast member for keeping his cool. Yeah.
I want to preface my opinion by saying her behavior is obscene and should never happen, right?
Yeah. Like I can understand being a little frustrated, but like the behavior was completely uncalled for. Yeah.
I always thought it was kind of odd that the stroller gets moved around and you're like, who's touching my stuff? Because you always get worried, right? Like there's no other place where I trust to leave like my stroller, my backpack, all my stuff just kind of in the middle of a giant crowd.
Oh yeah. And you hear these like nightmare stories that something got stolen out of my stroller and stuff like that. So you just, sometimes your brain goes to the worst case scenario.
And we had a cast member in Discord and they said, well, you shouldn't be worried because that means a cast member is actually watching over your stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was nice, I guess. All right, so the next up, there's a new thing I want to start doing as we get some people joining our Discord for the first time. I want to give them shout outs. I guess if we had a Patreon, this is what we'd be doing at this point, like some other shows, but we don't have
Discord is our Patreon. We don't get paid.
Yes, we get ego points when people come say hello to us, so we enjoy that. New members this week, we got two of them, King Orange and Drac TX. I'm assuming that's Drac Texas TX for is it capital letters. So welcome to the community. Glad you could finally join. I know King Orange hopped on and says, I finally joined after you guys mentioning it all this time. So I'm like, haha, yes, keep them coming. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet and you're listening or watching, if you're watching on YouTube, the link is in the description, or just follow Phil on social media and he posts them from time to time. Disney comeback index for this week. Not too much going on. We're at 78.98%, not exactly 79%. Couple character, what do we call them? Somewhat meets distance.
Disney calls them sightings, and I will say Matt has quite a fairly substantial penalty on a sighting. It gets docked by about 70%. Versus a full meet and greet. There's a little bit of a debate on how much the penalty should be, but I think it's one of those things where if all of a sudden the sightings went back to full meet and greets with hugs and photo pass and stuff like that, you'd see a little bit of a jump. So on the surface, it was like, oh, all these characters are back. Donald Duck is back, Joy is back. The Kevin returned, Vanellope. You'd think there'd be a bigger jump, but because of these penalties, it's not quite maybe the increase we would have expected.
Not perfect. Okay, so keep your eye on the DCI and make sure you take a listen to Matt's podcast as well. The link is in one of our descriptions from our previous shows. You can find it there. Okay, so as prefaced at the start of the show, we're only 5 minutes in, so it's very fresh in your minds, hopefully, of what I was just talking about. It's basically a mental health and mental health check. I mean, a lot of people on Twitter are doing mental health days type of thing where these people have like massive followings, and instead of like reporting football or politics or video games or arts and crafts, whatever you're doing, they're reaching out to their followers and saying, "What did you do today that made you happy?" or something else like that. And I thought today was a good point to kind of do this because you're seeing a lot of negativity. Well, we've been seeing a lot of negativity for quite some time. We've talked about it again on this show. And we also need a sanity check as well, right? We have to learn to live in the world that we are in today. It's never going to be the same as it was. It's going to be close, and it's going to be different in good ways and bad, right?
Absolutely.
So we need to figure out ways to combat negativity. And the negativity is not like, oh, I have to wear a mask or the world's an unsafe place type of stuff. But we have to, stop living in the past, and we have to start accepting moving on. So one of the things it's because it's like a double whammy, right? It's the pandemic stuff that everybody is worried about and is justified to do so. That's not a wrong thing to be worried about that. There's people that are upset that it affected their vacation in some way or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the second whammy is the nature of the Disney veteran, right? To always be disappointed when there's something different at Disney, right?
Right.
Disney's Walt Disney's favorite quote, and he said, I'll read it here because I could never do it exactly perfectly from memory. Disneyland will never be complete. It will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world. And one of the perfect examples is when Wishes changed to Happily Ever After, and that changed to Enchantment. Phil, you've seen it all over the place. You've been part of these debates, right? There's people out there like, I'm never coming back, right?
Right.
Like, what have you seen over? What other examples? Do you have any other examples that come to mind when it comes to like things changing or like don't touch my XYZ?
Well, I think the first one that comes to mind is Genie Plus and Lightning Lane compared to FastPass Plus. Obviously, part of that is the extra cost related to it, but I think a lot of it is what you're getting at in that people had years of working FastPass Plus, and they figured out how to like master it, and they figured out how to like get the most out of it, and now they have this new system that we've had Matt Pato on. He had a great experience with it. It's not the system itself isn't necessarily inherently bad. It's just different, and we don't know how to use it yet, but we have these expectations for what a Disney trip is, what I can get out of it. And when you have Disney adding the extra cost onto things, and even if it's not an extra cost, just prices are going up, right? I mean, just look at resort costs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, look, I'm spending more than I spent 5 years ago. I should be getting a better experience. And now I'm not even able to recreate what I got 5 years ago. And so I think that leads to a lot of frustration.
No, for sure, because that's I don't know, a third whammy to my double whammy. So like you've got this thing where you've got the stresses of your daily life, of school shutting down, kids missing, like all that stuff. You've got What's that?
I was just for sure. I mean, I'm
No, yeah.
just lately we've been dealing a lot with my son and stuff like you just got like million things going on, and I think that hits sometimes harder with Disney too, where you want Disney to be that break from the real world, and I think it's harder for it to be that.
Yeah. And so you've got that. You've got the natural inclination for people, because we were doing the Disney the DVC expeditions. We were talking about nostalgia, our first big one. Like Disney World is fueled by nostalgia, and when things are different, you're like, it's like taking part of, like, people sometimes think it's like taking part of your childhood away, right? Like, so this is a bad example, but like, we talked about last week about Barnstormer. All three of my children rode Barnstormer as their first roller coaster, right? What if 30 years from now, 40 years from now, whatever it might be, I'm a grandfather, and they took the Barnstormer away like 2 years before we planned our first trip with our grandkids. Like, oh, they'll never be able to go on it. Disney's terrible. I hate them because it's ruining my childhood, not my childhood, but my earlier memories with my kids when they were young. And you've got all these things, and then like you mentioned, the raising prices. So now you're getting frustrated because things are not there, but they're more expensive, and by a significant amount, right? Yeah. Like you don't have the experiences. Like this is one of the conversations I had with my wife, where we canceled the trip only because we have a youngest daughter who's not vaccinated yet, and there's a lot of COVID going around. So we're like, let's play it safe. 2, my wife's like, we're spending, we've got 10 days at the Caribbean Beach Resort with, my parents and, whatever. That's $11,000 for the whole trip. I mean, if you put the 2 reservations together, do we spend that much money for a lesser experience? It's the same conversation we've had a year ago, right?
Yep.
And me personally, I've moved on from doing this, and this is kind of, we're going to talk about this towards the end, about how to reset your expectations. So there's a lot of this anger building up, and there's a couple things I think Disney's not doing properly that I think they can kind of change this. And this is going back to our Genie Plus conversation, is gamifying your trip. I wish I could give the person credit. He or she said it in a Discord somewhere, or I read it on Twitter. I can't remember, but they were talking about gamifying your vacation at this point. Like, if you don't get a lightning lane, you're losing for that day, right? You're constantly competing against your fellow park attendees. And I think that's going to come and bite Disney slowly in the butt, because it's not going to come through the metrics for at least 2 or 3 years.
But that ties into even like what we've talked about with Magical Express going away and charging for like, it used to be, yes, it's always been expensive, but it felt more all-inclusive before. Like, yes, I'm having to pay this big chunk of money, but then kind of everything's covered. And now it feels like I pay this big chunk of money, and then I'm still going to have to pay for parking. I'm still going to have to pay to get to the park. I'm still going to have to pay for lightning lanes. Like, it just makes it a little harder to digest, I think.
I was trying to get a breakdown from my travel agent on what is the cost of the hotel, what is the cost of the tickets. I wanted to get like a per day cost, right? We were talking about how to, we were untangling the 2 reservations, and I wanted to know how exactly my parents' cost per day, right? Because I had some of our kids on that reservation. Long story short, travel agent said, it's a package. I can't break it down. It's just one number, right? So this is kind of a legacy type of thing. You don't know how much your vacation costs, other than that this is how much money you need to sign away, right? It's $5,000, it's $8,000, whatever it might be. With Lightning Lane now, it's like, okay, I can skip this line, it's $15. Okay, if I wanted to get a bottle of water, it's $6.50. If I want to partake in the Genie Plus service, it's $15 a day per person. If I want to go and see a special show, it's $150 to go to the after hour show. If I want to go in early, I have to be and like there's a price tag associated with everything, even like the perks and everything else. Like, it's just a cost, and people are going to start feeling nickel and dimed. They're going to start feeling being taken advantage of. And then you throw on that back with the whole gamifying thing. It's like, I'm throwing my money out there. I better get value, whether it's the conversation for the lightning lanes and the Genie Plus type of stuff. Like, you are now charging me for it. This better perform. And that's why they're now
expectations go up. I mean, like we've even talked about,
Absolutely.
now that you're charging a lightning lane for Rise, I better not get B mode, right? I better get the full experience if you're charging me for it, that type of thing.
Yeah, and so that's just going to start rubbing people the wrong way, especially people that are going back for the first time in a couple of years. This is their first time using the system, because it's going to be a first time for a lot of people for the next 2 years, because it's been in implementation for 3.5 months now, ish. So it's going to be new for a lot of people, and people are like, "Oh, this is great," but then you have to realize that they wake up every single day, and if you don't get it in the morning, then it's a big $50 for 2 lightning lanes. I mean, I read another trip report. I've been reading a lot of trip reports lately, skimming over them on Reddit, on Discord, and other places, and there's frustration going on.
Yeah.
So what Disney could do is start, like, they could take an extra money from me, right? But like tuck it away somewhere so I feel better about it. Like, give me, we were talking about like a Genie Plus package, right? If I buy 5 or more park tickets, I get Genie Plus for free. Right, for all those days. Give me something like that. Get rid of, you have to wake up at 7 a.m. to get your lightnings, or they're gone, right? Or make it more expensive, but make it more automatic, right? So if you're going to pay for something, you might as well pay for it at this point. And I think Disney needs to start handing things out more. They need to have more handing out free pins. They need more pixie dust. They need ways to plan vacations and like more discounts. I would say, because there's some summer discounts, but they're mostly for Florida residents.
Yeah.
So they need to start doing that. So they need a good kind of, I don't know, customer front, public front type of thing. Because this leads me to the next point that's causing all this anxiety and disappointment, I'd say, is this is, you don't like my hot takes, Phil. You yelled at me for my Star Wars hot take, which we'll talk about this Wednesday or Thursday when we do recording for that. But like the failed 50th anniversary, it's not fair me calling it failed, because obviously, I mean, the whole pandemic kind of put a nix in a lot of plans. So I'm not blaming anybody for this, but I feel like Disney could easily have done a lot of things.
It's definitely under-delivered. It's and some of that is on the pandemic, some of it's supply chain and stuff like that, but there's things they could do, right?
Oh, they could have easily done more,
especially when you see
parades.
What's funny, we were posting on Discord pictures from like our old trips to Disney, and I was posting stuff from like the 80s and stuff like that. Like they had this giant cake in Epcot for the 15th of Walt Disney. Like it felt like there was more going on for the 15th than there was for the 50th. And it's like, none of it was huge, but it's little things they could have done.
Little things.
You see what's going on in Paris for their 30th. It seems like there's more going on for the 30th in Paris than there is for the 50th of Walt Disney World. Like, and like I said, I'm trying to be sympathetic. I'm trying to understand, but there's things they could have added that made it felt like more of a celebration, and more of a celebration of the history of the park, of this, grand thing that Walt envisioned being, and it's not what Walt envisioned, but like he had this Florida project, like he bought all this land to do amazing things. And for many of us, it is an amazing place.
Mm-hmm.
Let's celebrate those past 50 years. And it's like, well, no, let's have a party sort of thing and some merch and a bunch of food.
Well, let me ask you this. Like if you walked into the park right now, and I haven't, because I haven't been there since the start of the 50th. If you didn't know it was the 50th, could you figure it out?
It certainly wouldn't be obvious. Like, I mean, maybe if you have
to
see the right, you'd have to merchandise. Some of the food things are advertised as that. I think there's still some banners around, but it's not like in your face. Like, this is a huge milestone celebration. Like, I mean, I'm sure people could point to things and stuff like that, but it's not like even what it was.
It should be overwhelming when you go to the park.
I mean, I went to Disneyland for their 60th. It was all over the place. Like, it was very clear this is a big celebration going on. I didn't get that sense at Walt Disney World.
And then part of this is, this not might matter for your, what do you call your average Walt Disney World guest, that they're going for, like, the family that goes every 5 years, or going for the once and only type of trip. I'm now talking, this is mostly aimed at all of you people that are listening right now.
If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not an average Disney fan.
This is the people that listen to park music on their Alexa while eating dinner, which is what I do almost every night. This is for the people that watch multiple, vlogs and podcasts and all this stuff to get like their Disney fix. the people that sit on Discord 24 hours a day chatting about these our people, us. This is a message. So we are now, and we have always been, completely submerged in Disney content, right? Whether it's dining reviews, trip reports, you've got your favorite couple shows that you either watch on YouTube or listen to as a podcast, whatever it might be. And there's a variety of content out there. Some of it has changed, some of it hasn't. But for the most part, it's for me, it's cheapened out a bit. And I want to bring something up, and I should have had it ready. I can't find my. Here we go. Get it loaded up here. Josh from EasyWDW. It's a great website. He does a lot. It's your typical Disney blogger. He's been around for quite some time. I'm not going to read out this whole thing, but we'll have a link of it somewhere. You can take a look at it, or you can just search for it. He's basically he's basically describing his depression and anxiety about being a Disney blogger and why he has been posting. And Phil, did you get a chance to read this?
I did, yes. And I would say Josh is.
How would you summarize it?
So Josh is in some ways a typical Disney blogger, but I think he's also a little bit more thoughtful. He's not one of those, I got to get something out right away. Like he's like, I'm going to give my opinion. I'm going to share news and stuff like that. But it's, I think he adds a little bit more than just let's get stuff out. And he basically said, why haven't I had more content out? And it's just a lot of sort of mental health stuff he's been dealing with in his life. And he could have just pushed through it and put forth more content for the sake of content, but he didn't feel that was right. That wasn't going to help him in kind of what he's dealing with in his life. And so he decided not to. And I think it was really, a lot of people like this account. It's, so he's starting with some good graces, but I think people appreciated that. Right. And I think that's probably what we need a little bit more of, people being honest and saying, look, I can't put myself into this, and I'm not going to do it just for the sake of doing it. I got some other stuff going on, and, maybe talking about Disney isn't going to help my mental health.
Yep. And I kind of feel the same way. We're going to talk about this with the reset in a little bit, but let me read one thing here. I'm going to bring it up on screen for those that are watching. The internet is also inundated with Disney news now, much unlike when I started the website. So I don't really know where I fit in anymore or what I should focus on. Like a lot of people, I'm also on the disillusioned side with Disney. So I'm writing about a product that I don't fully believe in, which is also difficult. If I disappeared tomorrow, the Disney blogosphere would take a hit. The quality of information available would likely worsen, and people would be disappointed for a moment or two, and then simply move on. And that's kind of the sense that I get, even from, I don't know, a civilian side. Well, actually, I'm an amateur Disney blogosphere with our small audience here. Yeah. But he goes on to say, like, there's a lot of superficial content out there, right? So just recall back to when, right when Disney World reopened, right? We got news all over the place about, oh, here's a sign. Here's a mask mandate sign. Okay, we're back. And like they were just searching for something to write about. So they were posting just garbage all over the place. Last year, we were making fun of Blog Mickey for updating us on the toll booth painting like every single day, or the sign changes. You've got people at like Disney Food Blog, and I love their stuff. It's well produced, the videos and stuff like that AJ does. But it's all like, here's another ice cream cone with a different pair of sprinkles. Here's another 2 cookies stuck in something else, and here's another popcorn bucket. It's just a loop right now, and this is some of the stuff that Josh is talking about. It's the chase. Like, do you want to be first? And if you're not first, do you just need to have content out there so it's new and the website gets clicks? And you guys see it out there. Like, you can scroll through half the stuff on your favorite Disney news site, and half the stuff you don't click on anymore, right? Yeah. There's no more opinion pieces anymore. There's no more guides or trips and tricks. And if there are, it's kind of just regurgitated same information and whatnot. And it seems to me the vast majority of stuff is just food related, because that's all that Disney is really providing that's quote unquote new. And while you could easily just turn off that stuff, and I have, like, I don't watch as much stuff anymore. But when you do, from a fan view and your own mental health, we're getting bombarded with stuff that's not very exciting. I don't know how many, cookies, Phil, that you can see on the internet that keeps you excited about going back to Disney.
Or
right?
all the repainting of the Guardians building, or whatever it is, where it almost becomes a joke, right? And that doesn't get you amped up to go when the news is kind of almost thought of as a joke because of what they're reporting on.
I mean, 3 years ago, you were watching all this stuff because you were planning your next trip, right? And it was you were not inundated with silly, the latest drink from Starbucks on Main Street type of stuff, right? There was more stuff to talk about. There was legitimate dining reviews, discussing trip reports, things that are changing, like legitimately changing at the park, not like the cement's a new color or they changed the color on a sign type of stuff, but there was legitimate like changes that we all kind of appreciated. And when hopefully I'm explaining this right from my mental aspect, is when you've got all this regurgitation of nonsense on the blogosphere, when Twitter is hyper focused on inane stuff, even if you're not on Twitter, that gets brought down to the people that you talk to about, or your Facebook groups that you're in, or on Discord, or wherever you get your content from. It gets trickled down into there. Mm-hmm. And when it's all superficial and it's all rat race, you're like, why am I watching? And if you're not watching as much Disney stuff, you're not feeling it, because it's like remember where we talked about with the missing magic for planning, because you're not planning the whole year to go down the trip. You're missing like I would watch a weekly show. I used to watch the Diz on a weekly basis, and I don't anymore because it's all like angry, or it's all like what's
that's what I was going to say. Even was when you do mention you don't have as much opinion pieces, and it feels like a lot of the opinion pieces are so negative now, right? It's even you mentioned the Disney went back to Boma, which was one of Pete's favorite restaurants, and it wasn't as good, or he just focused on the elements that weren't as good as he remembered, and things like that. So it's like, well, why am I watching this stuff that is negative? There's a few people out there that I think do, try to keep positive takes and stuff like that, and I enjoy them. Probably that's who I'm watching more than others, the ones that can try to focus on the positive elements. But when their experience going to the parks is not overly positive, that doesn't make you want to watch it either. So,
well, you get a feeling there's a lot of people. There's a couple, like one of the streams that's excellent is Resort TV on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They're always super amped up. The engaged. I mean, they're generally happy to be in the parks. You can tell from the excitement, the way they do things. And that's missing from a lot of the other, I don't know, mainstream bloggers. I don't know if they call them mainstream bloggers, whatever word, like the more popular ones that get a lot of the traffic. You could tell it's just a job for them now. And if I had to make a suggestion to a lot of these people, I would say you need to take a break, or change your format, right? Like the shows that the Diz puts out. Pete's not on them as often, and I get the burnout and the stress level of all that stuff. And there's no blame going around here. And then the supporting cast, it's the same guys for the last decade that have been putting out these shows. It's like, I think it's time for some of them to take a break, or don't do the show anymore. Do it in a different way.
I was going to say, even you mentioned
the
different format. I think of the Diz content, the stuff we've liked the best lately is their Off the Rail show, because that's new. It's different. It's not groundbreaking or anything like that. But at least, but at least it's got a little different feel to it from everything else. And so, I mean, I think that's good. You do see that from some other people, like DSNY is doing some different stuff, and just to try to switch it up. But kind of just the hardcore, like going to the parks, giving reviews. I don't know. It's just not what it used to be.
Well, it also goes back to Disney, because there's nothing new to talk about, right? I mean, the only changes in the parks right now are the quarterly festivals at Epcot, which are always great. Like, you all try new foods and new things, but that's all, like, again, just food related or drink and beverage related, right? Or then you see these stupid things with these popcorn buckets. But they're all negative. Like, there's a line completely out the door waiting for popcorn buckets. And, I don't judge somebody for wanting a popcorn bucket. You got one coming to you.
Yeah.
But, like, the news is all negative. It's a bunch of people mobbing for a popcorn bucket. And Disney could have easily put these out of the park somewhere, or easily accessible for some people who really wanted them. So you have all these people crammed in there, and it's just another negative story because now people are looking to report on anything new in a popcorn bucket that's new, and then a line that's something different in a park that is still a construction zone, right? So negative, negative, negative. And us folks at home were watching this, and we're like, "This is not what I want on Disney, right?" You know, you're watching the shows to be like, "Oh, I miss being in the parks. That looks awesome." Oh, I'm looking for tips because I'm going in like 4 months, and like let me see what's new in Tomorrowland. What does it look like? Or you're looking you're not, you don't have a trip planned, but you're watching it just to get a little bit of that nostalgia kick, right? And that goes back to the original point where people are upset because something's different at the parks, so they're not getting that nostalgia kick. So, what you need to do, and this is something that I've done, right? You got to stop chasing your tail around here with these things. It's basically you need to completely reset your mentality. You got to stop chasing the pre-pandemic trip, right? Whatever the parks are going to look like in a year from now, they're probably going to get very close to how things were. But you need to stop chasing the feeling that you had from your last trip. I mean, even if the pandemic never happened, this is probably a healthy thing to do also, right? But stop trying to forcibly recreate memories from either your last trip or recreating your memories for your kids. Like, my sister and brother-in-law do a very cool thing or have done great things with their trips because they've gone quite a bit. They're DVC and annual pass holders. When they go, there's like a no pressure trip anymore, right? They just go and make loose plans and just enjoy their time there. And for the planners out there or every 2 or 3 years, you feel pressured for making oh, I'm paying $8,000. It's $2,000 more expensive than last when I went in 2018 and I want to get my money's worth. So there's pressure.
100%.
And then there's the gamifying, right? So stop trying to recreate the pre-pandemic. But look at it this way. Stop saying, "Oh, I remember." Just say, "What do I want to do?"
Yeah.
And how do
I think that's the key, because I think especially if you're used to going, say, every year, and now it's been a couple of years since you've gone, I think just the way the human brain works is the things that were really great get amplified, and you kind of probably downplay some of the negatives. You see people like, "Oh my God, look how long the lines were." There were long lines 2 years ago, that sort of thing. But you don't remember waiting online. You remember the experience of the ride last time. And so I think sometimes now we just focus, we're afraid of the negative, and we're putting so much pressure that it's got to be as good as the one 2 years ago, which was perfect. And in reality, it probably wasn't perfect, right? And so I really like the way you said it. It's like, don't remember what you did, look forward to what you can do this time. Yes. And it's going to be different, and it might not be the same. Some parts of it might not be as good, but some parts might be better. Like I always keep coming back to, almost all the time, every trip, some of the best memories are things we didn't plan, things that just happened, and
because there's no stress associated with
it. So you got to kind of allow room for those to happen and let them happen and be joyful about them happening and not worry about what didn't happen.
See, I got hung up making sure I'm at all the parks, and we're doing all these experiences, and we're doing all this other stuff, and I forgot one of my main takeaways from one of my first fully planned trips is you got to plan spaces to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Or you go in and saying, I've got these things, I'm all done booking them, and now we can just, because the nostalgia, the sights, the smells, the sounds, they happen regardless of what line you're waiting in. Like, you walk past Pirates, you're getting a whiff of that cold, wet air coming out of that. You're walking down Main Street, you're smelling the popcorn and you're hearing the music, the sights of the castle, those type of things. That's what you're nostalgic for, right? Or walking through the park and seeing, the treehouse for the first time since you were a kid, type of thing. That's what you're really, looking for. And then, I think you have to kind of break the cycle a little bit. I've got a little technical difficulties with my camera. If you're watching, that's a problem. Hold on. I think I can reset it. Bear with me a moment, guys. And the last type thing, Phil, is like, typically when you schedule your trips, what kind of cycle do you usually go through when you do it. Like we talked about this in the planning episode we talked about.
Yeah, in the past, we always had, it was probably about a year. The exact timing might have changed a little bit, but we always had that year. And usually once we finished a trip, we were kind of already loosely thinking about when the next trip would be. Probably 9 months out or so, we would book, where we're going to stay, if not more than that. And then, like we talked in the past, you always had the 180 days for some things and 60 days for other things that's not quite there. So, but yeah, it was always kind of thinking about like almost pre-scheduling the next trip, and sometimes even thinking, okay, we're going on this trip, and then our next trip after that will be this one.
Right.
So definitely thinking forward on not even just the next trip, but the one after that.
And that's what I'm getting. It's like you need to break. Like for me personally, this is my own personal advice I had to think about. It's like I need to stop the cycle of chasing the canceled trip, because I think everybody out there has a canceled trip, whether it's an actual reservation you're canceled or like I'd like to go and you're getting ready to start booking things, but you can't. Right? It's like it's all that type of stuff. I need to stop being okay. So we canceled March of 2020, then we canceled October of 2021, then we canceled February of 2022. And like the part of me is like, okay, what are we going to reschedule? I'm not rescheduling. The family, we might do a trip in the summer or something, right? And kind of do what we did in September, like find like a hot deal and just go and do it for like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
But I'm not booking a long-term trip for a while at this point. That might change in like 2 months, right?
Right.
So I mean,
No,
like
for sure.
But like mentally, I'm not chasing that next trip anymore. And I think that's one healthy thing that I need to do. And for those out there, like, you might be chasing, I mean, this probably sounds terrible, but you might be chasing bad money with good, essentially. Kind of like the whole people that are addicted to gambling type of thing. You keep losing a bet, so you keep trying to raise the bet to get the money back, but you keep losing and losing and losing. This is not a loss thing, but this is more of a emotions thing. So let's say you had a trip and you went for a couple days, I don't know, a year ago or 6 months ago, and it wasn't quite the same as it was, and you were kind of disappointed, whether it was crowded or things weren't open, or you didn't get to the restaurant that you wanted to because it was closed, or you went but you didn't get the magic tingling that you usually feel when you went somewhere. So you're like, all right, I'm going to go again, and we're definitely going to get that feeling back, right? Yeah. Stop chasing that type of stuff. Like, don't be booking a trip because you can, only to chase some kind of memory that you didn't get last time.
Yeah.
Take a break from that. Still book the trip, but in like a different way. You got to approach it differently.
Yeah. What would it be? Chasing the Disney dragon, right? Isn't that the
yes? Yeah, you're not catching that tail right now. Yeah. I mean, I think like everybody needs to take a deep breath. We've been going about a half hour on this topic, and I think I want to wrap it up by stating it's get off Facebook, get off the internet for a while. Keep listening to this podcast for sure. Like, don't go with it. But no, I mean, like curate some of the stuff that you're listening to.
Yeah.
And I think we were doing it naturally. There's a lot of shows that I just don't watch anymore. I used to watch Disney Food Blog like on a Saturday night where we're all hanging out and then have a couple drinks. That's just all in the background because I like to see Disney pictures in the background on the TV while I'm not even paying attention to it. I don't watch anything Disney-wise on YouTube anymore because the content's not there. I listen to some of this stuff on as a podcast, but everybody needs to change their mentality a bit. Take a deep breath, and try to stay happy and healthy and focused on everything. Before we get to social media, Phil, I want to talk because we talking about positive experiences.
Yep.
I have one in the show notes. Do you want to read it from one of our own Discord members?
Yeah. So as we mentioned and profiled, and please continue to provide them. We want to stick with positivity. I guess I don't know if we stuck too much with positivity, but maybe before I get it, I will mention the few trips I had in the fall, I still had a great time. There's still a lot of fun to be had, and I hope we don't give off the impression we don't think good times can be had at Disney. It's just resetting your expectations, going in maybe with a little bit more of an open mind of what that magic is going to be, and if you just got to open.
if you're going to open up that door for to continue the conversation, I totally agree. Because when I went down in September, it was a spur of the minute, last minute trip. We went. The parks are still the same. The parks are still awesome and fun and amazing, but you have to temper your expectations.
Yeah.
This was a trip that was completely unplanned on a day-to-day basis. We went in, did rides, and stayed from open to close.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. I just want to make sure that I'm like saying I'm not saying don't plan a Disney trip. Plan it differently. Going with different expectations.
And I think different expectations is a good transition to our Disney Positive Story of the Week, which comes from our Discord member, TL Madden 73, who first of all said it's a great idea to have positive talks, and his positive experiences from the 50th. He was there on October 1st. I saw him there, so that was a positive from my standpoint. But what he said was, despite the negativity surrounding the day due to lack of anything super special that day, my wife and I still had a special time since we focused on rides. The wait times were super low that day, as most people were in line for merchandise. And if we had really wanted to, we probably could have done every attraction of that day. He said they only missed 6 attractions. And I remember that. We thought we were going to get on like 2 rides because the lines would be long everywhere, and they really weren't. We were like walking on everything. It was great. And as he said, the vibe that day was really positive, as the park was filled with a lot of Uber fans and friendly cast members, and we got to meet some of all of you, meaning the folks on Discord, at the he said the Mary Poppins gazebo. We had a couple of different meetups of Discord people over at the gazebo in near the Hall of Presidents in that area and stuff like that. So that was really neat, So I think, like he said, I think it kind of fits in with changing your perspective and not going in with saying we have to do X, Y, and Z. He wasn't planning on riding a bunch of rides, and in the end, he rode a bunch of rides. So there could be another trip where you go on where you might not ride a lot of rides, but you do a bunch of other stuff and have a great time. So let that magic hit you the way that it can.
Yeah, I think that was that reflects your point earlier. It's most of your memories come from things that aren't planned.
Exactly.
Right? So let it. If it wasn't so much money for those that aren't local, I would say why not? Your next trip, don't plan a single darn thing and just go and see how you enjoy it. But it's always tough to can't take your hand off the steering wheel that long. But all right, so if you have any other positive stories, Phil, where can they share them with us?
Yeah, so please share it. You can comment on this YouTube video, reach out to us on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the DBC Pod. You can also email us at thedbcpodcast@gmail.com. And of course,
thank you, Phil,
on our Discord server.
Yes, of course. If you join, your name will be shouted out.
Yes. And who doesn't love a shout out?
Of course. I'm going to put this week's attractionality on the screen. Number 46, Dumbo the Flying Elephant. And I was not ready. Based on the 1941 Disney animated masterpiece Dumbo, this classic attraction lets you hop atop everybody's favorite circus elephant as he discovers he can fly. Dumbo's faithful friend Timothy Q. Mouse helps keep you aloft with his magic feather. As a jubilant organ melody begins, lift off for a graceful cruise around and around and around Storybook Circus. So before we get into the questions, to kind of mirror some of my responses here, I asked the Encanto question from a week ago to my kids at dinner the other day. They're like, why don't we replace a whole Storybook Circus with a cool Encanto house? My daughter was like, oh, that might be a good idea. My son was like, isn't that where Dumbo is? In the play place inside? I'm like, yep. He's like, no, you can't get rid of that. So we've got a fan in the house with the Dumbo ride. Question number 1 is, how much do you like the concept of this attraction, a traditional spinner themed with flying elephants, Phil?
I really struggled with how to vote for this one because it's so hard to take out, the nostalgia with this one, that it's such it's almost like one of the handful of rides you think of when you think of Disney parks, right? I mean, it was one of the original at Disneyland and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I gave it a 4 because I think the Spirit of Flight, Dumbo, the magic feather flying, that concept, I guess, as far as the concept for a spinner ride, it's a really good concept.
I gave it a 3. And if it wasn't Dumbo, I probably would have given it 2. Just from a design point of view, this takes up a lot of real estate, and it's not a very interesting ride. Though I have to say, if you wanted to include the indoor play place, then my score might go up a little bit. But I'm just on the ride itself, I guess. Question number 2 is, how well do you think Dumbo delivers for its target audience, which I'm assuming is small kids?
I'd say small kids and people that have ridden it when they were small kids. I don't know.
Right.
Again, it's like
a kid at heart.
yeah. So
right.
yeah. So I think it delivers really well from that. There's so many pictures of people that I feel like I've seen so many photos of people that are like, these big tough guys or whatever, and then they're on Dumbo and they're smiling and they're having like, I don't know, it just makes you have fun. I really like it at night when the lights are going in the water and stuff like that. So I think, it's obviously a very simple ride, but it makes you smile, and I think that's all it needs to do. So I gave it a 4.
I also gave this one, not also. I gave this one a 3 as my first one. Couple of different things. It doesn't deliver for me only because I can't get the thing to go up and down on command. No matter what, Adam's like, am I just too big? The buttons don't work. Like I could never get it to go all the way up until like halfway through for whatever reason. I'm the guy that's like kind of flying at like the middle spot as it's going around, and like my wife and other kids are like all the way at top, and my son's yelling at me, "Dad, it's not working. Get up there. What are you doing?" So I don't know what it is. It delivers. I gave this a 3. I was probably being cynical. It got me on a bad day, I guess, or early in the morning or something. If you want to factor in nostalgia on this, you could give this a 4, 4.5, only because we have pictures of me and our kids like flying on this as like kind of like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
We have like a video of them when they're like 3 years old, like sitting in my lap as we're spinning around. So it definitely does bring me some excellent nostalgia tickles in my brain as we go on this. Question number 3 is, how much do you personally enjoy Dumbo? I'm just going to go first. I gave this a 4 only because of that nostalgia.
I gave it a 4 for the exact same reason. And as you mentioned, I have all saying you have the photos with the kid. I can picture those photos in my head of, I think we had one of us was with the kid in one Dumbo and the other person was in the Dumbo in front of it and taking pictures, looking back. And so I think everybody has those photos. So like I said, maybe I'm not being fair. If this was in a vacuum, like you said, if this wasn't Dumbo, but it was just some generic spinner, I'm sure I'd give this all 2s.
Yep.
But it's Dumbo and nostalgia. Nostalgia plays a role, like we just talked for the last half hour, right?
Right.
And so I gave it a 4 as well for that.
This should be no surprise for people that are watching. You can see what I voted on. How well do you think Dumbo fits into Fantasyland and the Magic Kingdom? I gave this a 2 because I'm not a fan of the Storybook Circus as a whole. There's so many other cooler things I think you do other than just a circus. So, I mean, if the question was how does it fit into Storybook Circus? Obviously, it's a great fit. But I'm taking the land overall, and I gave it a 2. What about you?
I gave it a 2 as well, actually, because I loved it in the old location. When you were spinning around with the castle in the background and stuff like that. I mean, maybe again, that's nostalgia playing a role. But I didn't like that it moved. I do like the lights and stuff like that they've added, and I like the play area. But I don't know. I'm kind of the same with you. I'm not crazy about Circus Land, and I liked it better where it was before. So,
because like I said, was this a week ago that we were talking about this? Was this literally our last?
I think it was just our last show.
Seems so long ago. But yeah, like to me, like that whole area of the park is just it feels dirty to me. Not dirty as in like there's garbage and it's grimy, but there's just it's to me it's that back part with the tree. There's just dirt on the ground. It's like the only place that there's just like dirt that's not like manicured lawn or something else like that. And is that the only part of the park that doesn't have the utilidors underneath it too?
It definitely does not have over there, and it only extends so far into Tomorrowland. But yeah,
right. Anyway,
and obviously not under the rivers of America. But yeah,
obviously. All right. The last part is Phil. What is everybody talking about this week? And just we kind of alluded to this before.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that people have been talking about, and in some ways positives and negatives, is there actually was a decent amount of news this week. I was actually thinking when this could be, we could do a retro show and do some news with some announcements around Toy Story Land and stuff like that. But some of the news was around returning character meets. So Joy was coming back, and I think Donald was coming back to Mexico, and a couple others. Olaf was back, and so that's great. Stuff is coming back, but they were coming back clearly as sightings. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, they made an announcement about things coming back for more characters, and they're not going back to traditional meet and greets, and it led to, probably on Discord more than anywhere else, but just this larger topic of, will we ever get the classic meet and greets back, and or will they forever be a little bit different? And kind of that larger question of like, when will I be able to hug Mickey Mouse again? I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. So,
well, yeah, I mean, like it's great that they're there and you get a chance to see the characters, and you can wait online to see the characters, right?
Mhm.
It's a guaranteed, ability to see them. The question is, will we ever get the traditional ones back? Absolutely, because there's too much infrastructure in that park with the meet and greets. Like, it's the Merida, it's the Princess Fairy Tale Hall. Did I get that right?
Yep.
The Fairy Tale Hall. You got the Anna Elsa in the Norway Pavilion. Excuse me. So you've got a lot of stuff there. That what are they going to do with those buildings long term? I honestly, it's just the whole if the trajectory of the pandemic was like it was last summer, where it was very, very low, I think we would have gotten meet and greets for the start of the 50th. But obviously that's not history. So we'll see. And like, I think if we don't get surprised by more pandemic stuff, I think Disney's itching to put these, because these are people eaters, right? They want people waiting on lines to see Mickey and Anna and Elsa and Olaf and stuff like that. So we'll definitely get them back. I think it's just more of a health and safety thing at this point. So we'll see. I do like the conversation on Discord where we are getting something that's clearly taken away that's back, though. It was generally a positive conversation that was going on.
Yeah.
On the internet.
And I also
didn't
think
see
the other news item, though, that I was hinting at was that Woody's Barbecue restaurant is going to open in 2022, and they also mentioned they're redoing the store, so it's going to be more interactive and stuff like that. And not that either of those items are huge, but it's still something new coming in 2022. So I don't know if we're just looking for breadcrumbs or whatever it is, but like
we are,
but it's nice to see that this was something that we didn't know we were going to get this year. And we are. So I think the same thing, like you said, with character meets, we didn't know when they were coming back. They came back. It's new. It's returning things. It's one step closer to normal, I guess.
Well, this is what we need to reset, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is all about Disney too. Like the Disney company needs to stop treating every little thing that's coming back as a major event, like the trams. That's what really pissed a lot of people off when it came to the trams, right? Like, you were running 4 major theme parks. You should be constantly adding new things to these parks. I mean, not necessarily e-ticket attractions once a year. Well, you should be, but you're not. But the smaller things that you should, like, this week we're meeting this new character, or we're doing a new type of parade, or like all these things. We talked about this already, right? Like, we have been so trained over the last 2 years to just look for any good news that we celebrate it, and we need to stop. Because that's what's going back to the whole blogosphere type of thing. It's I don't want to say it's a toxic environment, because everybody's doing it for their job. Everybody's thinking they're doing the right thing, and sometimes it is. But it's like everybody gets caught up in all the little things that you can't. There's no space to breathe for any of this stuff. And I think that's kind of a problem. I think my advice to any of the bloggers out there is, like, stop reporting every new color sprinkle that's on ice cream in the parks. Like, just chill out with that stuff.
When it just sets the expectations a little wrong, right? Like, okay, and to your point, Disney does this too. When they announce something, they make it seem huge, and then you get all psyched for it, and you go see it, and you're like, oh, it's just different colored sprinkles. It's not anything that was deserving this hype. And to your point, back in the day, they used to do more of that. They used to have a new parade every year for whatever the new movie coming out was and stuff like that. And we don't get any of that. I know somebody commented, was like, oh, you have a new show at Epcot that celebrates different cultures. You have a new movie that has that's from, a culture that has amazing music. Why don't we put those together? You're like, but they're not going to update Harmonious just for a new movie. Like, that's not what they do anymore. So I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just like,
well, no, but it's like, see, this is why this space on this show is very good, because you are voicing. It's very tough to string all these together.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are the longest show notes I've put together. usually I can have 3 topics or 3 lines of things I want to comment on, and I could expand on in my head. There's an ecosystem of disappointment, or anxiety, I should say, that's all within the Disney fandom right now, Uber fandom. And it ties it's self-looping, it's self-feeding. Disney's not spending on money anything new, and every time they spend, they want to be patted on the back for spending anything.
Yeah.
You've got the negativity of Bob Chapek's promotion and what he's doing, and honestly, we haven't really given him too much of a chance to have his own stamp on things. Granted, the outlook is not very strong in his favor, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt after the kind of pandemic has wound itself out. Hopefully that's relatively soon. You've got all the influencers, we'll call them, putting any content that's out there, and it's all cheap content. It's not good content, right? But you're getting inundated with it, constantly. And
Quantity over quality a lot of the time.
yes, and I want some good. I'd rather Disney Food Blog put out one show a week rather than 50 articles about whatever. And they're poorly. I mean, I don't want to say anything disparaging about Disney Food Blog, but if you actually read on some of this stuff, like this could have been like a picture and a caption, and that's it. We don't need. I mean, like, there's no point in reading this stuff because there's no whatever
Substance
in there. But I like pictures. Like, I have no problem. Like on Discord, if you're in the news and rumors section, we've got a couple feeds going, and 50%. Or I would say 80% of them is either merch updates or food updates. And I don't know. Do we do? Okay, we're going to go for a couple more minutes, Phil. We're going to end it here. I don't think anybody needs to know that there's a new T-shirt out. There's a new gizmo out. I mean, when the Diz wanted more content on their newsletter, they have Monday merch day. That email was in my inbox this morning. I'm like, I don't want to be reminded of different ways I can spend money on Disney anymore. I don't need. I mean, that's me personally. Some people love looking at the new bag. Like there's a wide variety of new merch, and that somebody loves that one specific thing. They love seeing that type of thing. But in an aggregate together, it's a little overwhelming, and it makes me gloss over things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a new handbag or a new T-shirt should not be making a major news thread. On an hourly basis.
Well, this is about the characters, but we were kind of talking on Discord how Blog Mickey had, there were 3 new returning characters. Blog Mickey had 3 articles, one for each one.
Yeah.
And you're like, did that need 3 articles? I get that's how they get clicks. That's how they get paid. That's just kind of how the machine works. So I'm not blaming them, but it's like, it doesn't help, for the headspace, really, right? Like
it's, and I mean, I think it was a joke when we started updating like the signs and stuff like that with the different purple paint and stuff like that. But they've continued doing that with everything, and it's just too much. And when we've been trained to ignore a lot of things, so this could work in reverse. Like Disney could do something, but it gets washed away with 1,000 milkshake updates and 30 new signs or a garbage can that's overflowing, and every single blogger takes a picture of it and posts a story. Yet there's a wonderful story about, some magical moment in the parks that no one picked up on. Like your story about the popcorn buckets where somebody was going to the back of the line and handing them out type of thing. That gets lost because...
Yeah, that was individuals were posting that, not the blogger. I mean, I don't want to say none of them posted any of those stories, but that wasn't picked up the same way as the negative aspect was.
Well, I mean, they're so concentrated on getting laying down on the floor, taking pictures of the Figment bucket with Epcot, with Spaceship Earth in the background, getting the perfect shot, and talking about reporting on all this other stuff, blah 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 blah. While you suffocate the stories, because I'm sure, even if it didn't happen that time, I bet you there's stories like that every single day. That every once in a while we could have those positive stories start trending somewhere, and we check them out. And I think there's less opportunity for that when everybody's worried about the Figment popcorn bucket. But we did get the T-shirt that we saw on social media. If you want to talk about the was that our DBC recommends?
That was our DBC recommends last week. Maybe we'll make it the DBC recommends this week too.
Yes.
The Bad Figment sketch. So I did get my T-shirt in the mail. I posted it on social media, and it's wonderful. It says any art, anything can be art if you use your imagination. I love it. I will be wearing it when I go down to Disney next month. I think I'll wear it for my yoga in the parks day.
Nice.
Hopefully get a lot of strange looks and but hopefully I'll get a couple people like, oh, I get it. Nice. A couple
Yes.
knowing nods.
But like that, those are the type of stories that I'm glad that one trended.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. And I think we need more of that and less of what's the latest cookie from what's the place at Disney Springs. All right, so let's wrap up the show with that positive Figment story on your end. Positivity. I think. How about we do this? We're going to tease a special guest for next week.
Yes.
We're not going to tell you who it is, but
very excited.
Very excited, and I'm quite surprised that they agreed to come on. And I just screwed up your camera. Excuse me. Do they have a blue check mark on Twitter?
I believe so.
Ooh. So see if you could guess who it is. How about we do that? See if somebody could guess on social media who it might be. And we'll either disappoint you or surprise you either way. That being said, guys, have a great week. Have a happy and healthy week. Tell somebody you love them. And then we'll see you in a couple days for the Book of Boba Fett.
All right.
Have a good one, everybody.
Take care, everyone.